self-inquiry is the process by which, a very simple process, and actually the course does have lessons about this. There are certain lessons where the course says just to watch your thoughts pass. So there are various lessons, so self-inquiry is basically this thing, which is like, how can I experience my true self, and what is my true self, and what is not my true self? Well, to experience my true self, I need to know what I am and what I'm not. And how that goes is, what I am, can that be something that passes? Or is what I am something that is always here? So, for example, and is what I have, is what I am in truth the subjective, or is what I am in truth an object? So, in simple terms, I like let's mix it up and use the kettle on the table, or we can use the mug on the table. Let's use the mug on the table. Mug's always a nice one. So the mug, like now to experience what I am in truth, if I see a mug on the table, then the mug is an object, right? So now in trying to experience what I am right now, if I'm observing a mug, am I the mug or am I the observer of the mug? You see? So I'm going to answer that complicated question. And see, the mug is being observed. So that which I am is the observer of the mug. The mug is not what I am. So the mug is in a field of is a more limited field. So if I'm highly identified with the mug, then I become constricted to the shape and the place of the mug. So in that realization, it's like I am the observing of the mug, and I experience that, And then, but what about when we get closer? When we get closer, what about thoughts? Like thoughts are passing, but am I the thoughts, or am I that which is observing the thoughts? So it's like, well, then we want to inquire deeper within. So thoughts come and go. It's like suddenly there can be a thought like, I'm tired, and then that thought vanishes. Now, am I that thought, or am I the observer of all thoughts that come and go, which is which is greater in truth? What about images? Suddenly, a memory may flash across the mind, or these different images may flash across. But can I be an image, or am I that which observes all images that come and go? Is it true that I'm an image? If I see an image of a donut, am I that image of the donut, or am I that which is observing that and not an image? I.e., am I prior to that, to images? Am I prior to thoughts? Am I the field of subjectivity or observation which observes mugs and objects in the external world, which observes thoughts which are passing, but is not of thought? So I'm not a mug, I'm not a thought, I'm not an image. What about these feelings? What about if fear? Suddenly there is no fear, and then fear arises, and then it's coming up and it's becoming intense, and then it's passing away. Am I that feeling, or am I that which is observing the coming and going of feelings? Which is more true? That I can be a thing that is observed passing, or am I that which observes all passing phenomena but cannot be that which passes? So we've got, so in the inquiry we see, can I be like a mug or a table, or am I that which observes mugs and tables? Can I be a thoughts, or am I that which observes all passing thoughts but is not of thought? Can I be a feeling that emerges and then passes, or am I that which observes feelings? What about images and memories? Am I an image or a memory, or am I that which observes all images and memories? Or any of the senses? What about the identification with the body? Sometimes it's there, sometimes it's not. Am I the body, or am I that which observes identification with the body? So in all of this, we inquire into what is really the true nature of self. I would say that in experiencing, and can that self be anything which is in limitation? Can I be constricted by form? Can I be constricted by the dimensions of a mug? Can I be constricted by the dimensions of a passing thought? Can I be constricted by the identifications with whatever body sensations are going on? Can that which I am be constricted by a passing feeling? Are any of these things me, or am I that which is eternally present, which witnesses these things without attachment or without identification? So in this we start to experience what I really am and what I'm really not. So with that, and it can be feelings, it can be tiredness, it can be thoughts, it can be images, concepts, whatever it may be. So with that, now the way to use it is, of course, in this moment, if there's any experiencing of anything which is in the field of limitation, the way to do it is to self-diagnose. Am I experiencing myself as a stream of thoughts? Am I experiencing myself as a heavy body or a tired body? Am I experiencing myself like a sensation in the leg? Am I experiencing myself like I've got an illness? But all of these things are in the realm of limits. So what is here which is observing or is aware of this, which is not this? Can I be in the realm of that which is prior to the identification with whatever type of identification in the realm of form is being hooked into or being identified with? So that's the practice of self-inquiry. Now, if anyone is, and I'll ask for volunteers, and we're able to switch off the camera if people want to be off camera for this segment. But is there anyone here who wants to volunteer or is experiencing anything which is what I'd call within the form of limitation? You might be feeling fear, might be feeling tiredness, might be feeling a lot of thought activity, might be feeling whatever. Is there, or, yes? Are we okay to be on camera, or do you
I don't mind.
You don't mind. Okay. So we'll practice on you, and great. So, all right. So the first question is, we're trying to get a current reading of what's happening in this now, in this moment. What's real for you right now? So it's like taking a reading. What is the experience right now? Like if I was to say, what's your experience of self right now?
In this present moment?
In this just precise moment, yeah.
I can feel the chair underneath me.
Yeah.
I can feel the tingling sensation of my feet trying to get warmer. I can feel this fleece blanket under my feet. I can feel my bra.
Yeah.
I can feel this jacket, particularly around the shoulder area. I feel my nose. Feels like the tingling sensation of it getting warmer.
Mm-hmm.
I can feel my face warming up. Here feels like as cold as the tip of my nose. I can feel my scalp feels a bit cold. My lips feel a bit dry. That's probably just a bit of dehydration starting to come on. My ears feel very clear, like they can hear lots of different sounds, from very, very quiet to louder.
Okay, so there's all these feelings, like there's feelings of tingling, there's feelings of cold, there's feelings of various temperatures, there's feelings of different aspects of the body, different parts of the body. So all of that is here. So these feelings, okay, that's fine. There's lots of feelings here. Like for example, there's a mug on the table. There's a table in this room. There's a plant in this room. For myself, there's no confusion that I'm the mug in this room or that I'm the plant in this room. I'm not limited to that. So that's great. There's a report in this moment of now of all of these feelings and these tinglings and sensations in the body. Is this the experience of you? Is all of these feelings, is it like this is me? Is this what you're saying right now? Or is it just a reporting? I just need to get clarity on that.
That's what my body's feeling.
Okay. Is this that's in the body, like, okay, there's a mug on the table, but I'm not the mug on the table. It's not constricting what I am in experiencing in the now for myself. So all of these, that's fine. All these feelings are there, that's not a problem. And so but you're you, and just be real. What's your experience right now? It's not, there's a mug, for me there's a mug in the room, but it's not what I am. Mm-hmm. And I don't feel any restriction from it. I don't feel like I'm tied to that mug. So, are you tied to anything right now?
Am I tied to anything?
Are these, I call them objects or forms, are any of these like personal? You feel like they're you?
No, it doesn't feel like me.
Okay.
As in true self. No. Yeah.
So the experiencing, like, let's get, so in truth now, in your experience as well, what's real. In truth, is your true self, or is is what is experiencing now yourself in limitation?
No.
Okay. So
it doesn't feel like that.
Okay. So it's quite happy and joyful.
Yeah, I feel essentially peaceful.
Yeah, that's it. Cool.
Still.
Yes, that's perfect. Mm. Peace and stillness. It's okay for there to be mugs and tables in the room, but when there's identification or hooking into these things, and then saying, like, if I said I'm a mug because there's a mug in front of me, then that creates a feeling like I'm becoming limited. But in stillness and peace, in the limitless realm, these things may be here, but they don't bother what one is. So that's great. Thank you. And do you have any other volunteers or anything for this?
I would want to say, what about your emotions?
Right now, I actually feel fine. I feel like I'm in a loving space. I feel safe. There isn't this sense of like there's an emergency light gone on, like this doesn't feel comfortable. I feel like I've shared what I'm comfortable with, and I feel safe. I feel well, to put it that way. Yeah. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, I'm sure she would have reported it, like overwhelming fear or overwhelming panic or terror or something.
Yeah, I would have, to be honest.
Yeah, any other volunteers, or should we go to the next segment? Or no? No?
Do you want to
go?
No.
No. Okay. We're going to the next segment. So, okay. So the next segment is discussion. Okay. So the camera's still on. We can switch it off if anyone wants to ask questions off camera. Does anyone? I can go through some stuff, or does someone want to put in some questions into the discussion? Otherwise, I can make some stuff up from maybe around tiredness or marathons or or resentments, or what have we got here? Fear, losing connection, losing one's buzz.
I think the thing when we speak about that, most people who speak about spirituality, most people who teach some form of spirituality will say that a connection is contingent on some kind of daily practice.
Oh, yeah.
Or routine. But when you apply beliefs into that, it's all a belief.
Yes.
It's a belief that it's contingent on working a daily program or meditating or doing whatever you have to do on a daily basis. You're supposed to have a ritual at the beginning of the day,
Yes.
which is going to set you up and put you into the zone.
Yes.
If now, to eliminate the belief that we need to do that,
Yes.
it almost feels contradictory, because even the practice of eliminating the belief is a practice.
Yes.
So the idea, therefore, yeah, that's
Monica.
the idea, therefore, would be to, if you could eliminate all beliefs surrounding a spiritual practice, or the need for a spiritual practice, then you should theoretically be able to remain in the zone without needing to do anything.
I lost the last bit. You should be able to remain in the zone without having to cancel.
Without having to do anything. Because if, listen, the majority of spiritual teachers or teachings will speak about a daily or regular practice, and that practice could involve meditation, it could be working a program, it could be surrendering in prayer.
Yeah.
But most of it is conditional on some kind of daily regime.
Yes.
If we apply the principles here that a daily regime is just a belief, the need for a daily regime is just a belief, and therefore it is not real,
Yes.
there should be a way of saying, well, I don't need to do anything, I'm just going to be in the zone, I'm going to be spiritually connected and focused at all times, and I don't need to do anything, it's just going to flow, it's just going to be the way I am, it's going to be my default state, and I can do absolutely anything I want because I can't lose it.
Yes.
That'd be great.
That would be great, and I would say with that, it's a little bit like, now, we have some people here who have had those states, so, some people actually just go into those states, automatically, and I would say that everyone's a bit different, but if someone can, then you don't need to. I'd say those states are actually the end point of actually needing to cancel beliefs or do any form of practice. So if you're in a sublime state of eternal miraculous flow, and there's no sense of person, and there's just an effortless flow, then it's like ridiculous to sort of say, like, okay, I think you now need to cancel your belief in something. Because it's like, well, the whole point of it all was to get to that place, and you're at the end point. And that place is beyond individuality or person, or the need to even be a separate person having to do a activity to try and stay in a more connected space. So it would be like nonsense to say you do. I would say though, if anyone can just say, I cancel my belief in needing to do any spiritual work and be in that state immediately, then or if they're automatically in that state, then of course it's not necessary. If one is in the state automatically, then there's no need to do anything. Or if one can just say it once and be in that state, then that's fine. I would say though, for some people, or maybe many people, like what happens in what is said in lesson 14, that it's good to be specific with what's going on. I mean, like, I could say I cancel my belief in duality and separation and the illusion, and if that would like take me off into the infinite realm in one go, well, that's amazing. That's awesome. However, I'd say for many individuals, I'm not saying for all, because I know some people here have been in really awesome states. For many people, it's like the unconscious is holding on to a lot of crap. So it needs to be, for many people, I believe in colds, or I believe in eczema, or these things still have identification within the belief systems, or so that if you try and do a very quick bypass, it's like it won't release those nitty-gritty tiny belief systems which are going on in the background. So you try and be just in an infinite state of flow, but it just doesn't let you get there. So then it seems like you have to do the work, seemingly. But obviously, if you're in the true state, you don't have to do any work because you're already there. So it'd be ridiculous. So it's a bit like, kind of like a chicken and egg thing, whereby it's like, yes, in truth, you don't have to do any work, you don't have to do any Course in Miracles, you don't have to cancel anything, and that's fine. But in the end, it's like it's one of those things. It is a belief that you need to do stuff. I can see that some people might think it might become such a belief that it would stop you from getting to those highest levels, just to believe you have to continuously carry on with the morning routine. I do, in my experience, I do feel that I do feel that as you start cancelling beliefs and doing the routine, the belief in the whole world starts to dissipate on a global scale. So just generally the identification with all beliefs, because often when one is doing the Course in Miracles, we're cancelling the belief in the ego, we're cancelling the belief in separation, we're cancelling the belief. So that's automatically having a subliminal effect on releasing even the belief that it will be necessary to do a routine. But it is possible, I guess, that someone... I do understand what the question is. In some environments, they say, like, if you don't do the routine, you're going to go to very dark places. But as you start to get high into the higher realms of consciousness, the belief in the whole world and the whole world of separation and fear starts to fade. So I think there's a global dissolution. That's okay. Global dissolution of all belief systems. So does that answer the question, or have I gone totally off track?
No, I think I know what you mean. It's all working within certain belief systems. Everything is,
yeah.
And trying to work with what personally serves us without becoming overly influenced by other people's, let me choose the word carefully, I want to say baggage, but it's not necessarily.
It's other people's beliefs.
Yeah, it's a bit of a negative way of putting it, but belief systems are often a result of baggage. It's and even spiritual belief systems are a result of what's been handed down according to the teacher's personal perspective or experience. And so, if we speak about something, for instance, such as 12-step recovery, often you'll hear in a 12-step meeting, I am abstinent from my fix of choice as a result of my continuing of a daily program. And if I don't have this daily program, I'm going to relapse and die.
Yes.
And I know from experience that just isn't true. But even if you move beyond that and you go into certain other practices, they will say you have to surrender to God on a daily basis, or you have to do 15 minutes of meditation every morning when you get up, and if you don't do this, then you're going to lose favour with your connection, and you're going to get spat straight out of the cosmic state of beingness that you're living in, and become unworthy. And it's like it's stripping away those layers of baggage that we've picked up. If we look at the beasts of this world, if we look at the animals, right? We've spoken about this in these groups before. Wild animals are pretty much in a state of beingness. We observe them and they kind of live freely. They do what they have to do to eat. The food comes to them. Yeah. And yes, there are environmental factors that affect this, but for the large part, animals are kind of romping through life quite unbothered by anything beyond their immediate environment. Then the animals that are our companions seem to pick up our baggage, and they get anxiety and stress and illness, and they seem to pick up on all the human shit. Mm-hmm. And it's almost like, in some ways, it's like if we could get into a much more natural state of being, more akin to the beasts, more akin to animals.
Yes.
I'm not saying animalistic or primal, I'm speaking in that more relaxed, go with the flow state of mind. We shouldn't really need to worry too much about our daily rituals, whatever they are. We shouldn't need to work ourselves up into a spiritual frenzy every time we get up in the morning in order to just function in a happy state of mind. We should potentially be able to just be in that state just by being in that state.
Oh, absolutely, I agree. I mean, it's one of those.
I'd like to know the daily practice I need to do that. No, I'm being facetious there, but you know.
You said it's a human mind, though. It's like a human mind. It's a human mind because the beasts, they don't have the human mind. It always tries to figure things out,
Well, as far
and
as
get
I
a
know,
plan, and yeah.
As far as I can tell, animals don't seem to live their life on assumptions. You know, they don't. Obviously, we don't communicate with them, so we don't know. But they don't seem to live their lives second guessing everybody else and having these thought processes that put them into this chronic state of fear.
No, but they do have daily routines.
They pick up a lot from humans, so it's true. I think they pick up, especially dogs, they pick up everything
Yeah,
from
but
humans.
they pick up the companion animals pick up our baggage. Yeah.
But wild animals have their routines.
They're
Their
not-
daily
well-
and
They don't get into
psychical
do they get into anxiety though? When
Well-
they
That's
don't do them?
different from having a routine.
Well, you know, it's actually, you know, on the video that we got from you on the fish.
Yeah, the
You know,
fish doesn't matter.
the fish.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems like it's got a routine, but it's not really thinking,
Yeah, that's what it's more,
making that patterning in the
it's more
ground.
intuitive.
It's an intuitive. That's right. So there is a higher wisdom when you let go of the thinking process, which is trying to I'm going to orchestrate. I'm going to think what the future should be, and I'm going to make it happen as an individual. You know, so it's the ego, the separate ego, which believes it's in separation from the universe and God and all the divine wisdom, is trying to force something into creation. So when that happens, then there is this kind of suffering that occurs, because it can never always go that way.
But I feel it all comes down to the trust, and because it comes out of fear.
Yes.
All that it comes out of fear, and when you have trust, you don't have that. It
That's
just
right.
comes out. That's the basis of all of it, isn't it?
That's right. Trust is the same as surrender, as letting go. Letting go of everything. Letting go, I mean, I'd say fundamentally letting go of the need to think. That, you know, one of the first lessons in A Course in Miracles is all my thoughts are meaningless. Every thought. So when you let go of the fundamental need, for me it's quite simple. It's the identification with thoughts. The identification with thoughts then creates this kind of pseudo-separation, which means suddenly an I is born, a separate I, that is going to figure things out, is going to plan everything, is going to...
Because it wants to protect you. That's where it comes. That ego wants to protect you. It wants to do that because it thinks it keeps you safe by doing it. So that's where it comes from. It comes from, again, fear. I have to keep myself safe, so I will do these things.
It's born of fear. It's born of fear and separation. And I would say the most important thing to know is that in terms of reaching those higher spiritual states, it's not useful.
No, it doesn't.
And in fact, you know, sometimes more exquisite joy, more exquisite miracles, more exquisite grace is experienced in the releasing of the fear. Especially for some people who've been tormented by too much identification with separation and individuality, it's then necessary to release that to get to the higher sources. When I come from an addiction background, compulsive overeating, and there was anyone who's in an addiction background is what I call an extreme thinker, extremely fast thinking, and then one is blocked off from that grace, the light, that intuitive force, and ended up using addiction, donuts and food to suppress this huge feeling of fear and separation and anxiety that was going on continuously. So actually for me, even though the ego says, yes, fear and thinking is good for survival, in my case, too much fear and thinking was leading to death, quite literally. And the surrendering, we're doing the Course in Miracles, all my thoughts are meaningless. It's the most, you can experience miracles, you can experience grace, you can experience joy, you can experience presence.
What is grace?
Grace is that feeling of flow, that the individuality is gone, and that there's these sublime states of limitless peace, joy, and it's like the individual's gone. I know some people in this room have experienced it. It's like the individual is gone, and there's just a witnessing of a witnessing of beauty and joy, and it's like the whole universe is just synchronistically unfolding, and everything is just spontaneously witnessed, and there's a miraculous synchronicity to the unfolding of life, which is exquisite. And you then recognize that the more identification with thinking and the body that happens, it drops you off from that exquisite, joyful flow, shall we say, or exquisite grace. Grace. When you're in those fields, I mean, grace is one way of describing what it is, the infinite fields. And it's seen that actually, when one is in individuality, when one is in the I, when one is in thinking, when one is in body identification. Now, there's different levels. Extreme thinking and extreme body identification, for me, lead to the higher levels of suffering, anxiety, fear, obsessive thinking, and create, take one down towards death, because one is actually cut off from the life source. As you do some more spiritual work, you're into the higher levels. And so I would say that the I actually becomes more subtle the more spiritual work you do. You start to when you get to the advanced levels of spiritual work, like the Course in Miracles, you start to lose your sense of I. Then you get into those limitless states of peace, flow, and miracles. And the right word, which has just been shared, is it's not like there's an I. There's like an omniscient intuitiveness, and an unfolding grace and a flow of life. And there's no like individual there trying to plan the future or worry about tomorrow or the past or be bringing. It's present, it's instantaneous, it's now. That's some spiritual teaching, it's the eternal now. And in that eternal now there's a grace, there's a wisdom, there's an intuitiveness, there's a synchronicity. And I'd say it's in a direct correlation to the absence of what I call the ego, or the I, the limited I, the thing that thinks it's an individual that can think separately and that is identified with the body. And as soon as it identifies as limited me thinking, limited body, it then projects a world of fear and separation. There's other bodies in separation that are thinking just like I am in fear and separation. And then all the control mechanisms and wanting the world to be a certain way, rather than letting go and then allowing this intuitive field of divinity, of grace, of creation, which is the most sublime states. And those I know people in this room have experienced that. Those states are far greater than any of the fields of limitation. So. Yeah, does that answer the question on grace?
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Grace. Yeah. This is. I think everyone has experienced grace, even for small periods or times in their life, when it's just like an effortless flow. One just wakes up. There's no fear. There's no thinking of the future. Everything just synchronistically unfolds through the day, and it's like bliss, and everything just magically happens. So, yeah, absolutely. So. In order to get more of that, one has to keep dissolving the me, the feeling that there's a me dictating to the world, you see, and then one is becoming, is the disappearance of I, the disappearance of a self, the disappearance of limitation increases the realm of miracles. And then one is, and as one gets to the highest realms, the most miracles happen because there is no I. It's like, is the infinite state true, or is the separated state true in truth? So the separated state means there is an individual me. As the individual me starts to disappear, then that what I call you start to get experiences of grace or miracles. They flash up, like suddenly the right person appears at the right time.
But why does it happen? happen to people that are not generally in any non-me states? It's just something for everyone. Sometimes it just comes to what is it about you that
No, sometimes people just go into those states just for a very short period of time, and these things occur. But for myself, the Course in Miracles is one of the best ways, and some of these non-dual teachings is some of the best ways, because it deletes the most important factor into getting into that realm all the time. And it has to be the deletion of the idea of a separate me that once is dictating, if you like, to a limitless me, that it wants things to be in a certain way. While that's still, to the extent that separation exists, to the extent that there's a heavier and heavier identification with the separate me, then there becomes less synchronicities, less miracles, less grace. And sometimes you can get these mild occurrences. Sometimes one can go into those states just for a short period, and these amazing miracles, you can go into darkness. But if you fundamentally do something like the Course in Miracles or a non-dual teaching, then you are getting rid of the root problem. And the root problem of why one goes into these states of higher suffering, or sometimes into these states of, is that there's still an independent, separate self that thinks it's in separation to the eternal. That creates that sense of thing. So in the beginning we use words like trust. So there's a separate self, i.e. there's a me who's trusting something more limitless, and it says, so that's a good word to use in the beginning, because it's a very strong me, and actually, the idea of a universe in oneness and limitlessness with no me, there is no separation. This is too alien. So we say that to the little me, the little ego goes, okay, little ego, you have to trust the big limitless me, the big limitless eternal oneness. You trust the eternal oneness, and the more you have this trust, and the more you let go of reliance on the separate me having to think and control and tell the big me what to do and how life should be, then the more that this trust happens, the more one starts to experience greater levels of freedom and synchronicities and miracles. Then at a later level, you understand that actually it's not just trust, it's the identification with the idea that even a separate me exists, that is separate from that.
Even there is something that has to trust something else.
Yes, exactly. That's a dualistic. So then one is deleting all aspects that there is any type of thing as duality. Any type of thing is a separate me talking to a bigger me, and like, oh, I like that. So please accept the other thing. Please give me more of that in the future. So even this has to be dissolved, and then one is getting more into those states. And in fact, in those states, there cannot be any fear or any separation by definition, because that which creates fear and separation is the little me or the ego. The ego, and in the Course in Miracles, is a very high teaching because it says two things for me, two fundamental lessons in the Course in Miracles. One early on, all my thoughts are meaningless. There's not a single thought in this stream of passing thoughts that is meaningful. In that, one then releases the idea of a separate self identifying to thoughts and then creating the idea of a separate me. The other one, of course, which is one of the strongest identifications, which then perpetuates the thinking me, is the identification with the body. And one of the lessons in A Course in Miracles is repeated over and over and over again, is I'm not a body, I am free, for I am as God created me. It's repeated.
I think that's one of the most fundamental things, because that is the basis of everything, isn't it?
Yes.
Because it's all about being identified with the body. If you're no longer identified with the body, everything changes immediately.
Yes.
Because, that's the hardest thing. Who would be, especially if you have physical pain or something.
Yes.
And that happens to everyone. Once in a while you have something, and then suddenly, even however you thought before you were so spiritual, whatever, and then you have a toothache or something in pain, and you just completely stuck with that.
So these are the realms of identification. So strong identification creates strong suffering. Strong identification with the body creates...
Because it comes all from fear of death, doesn't it? It's because when you feel pain in the body, you feel like I'm the body, which means that I will die. It's all about that, isn't it? At the basis of it, it comes from the fear of death, doesn't it?
Yes, the fear of death. So in letting go, I'm not a body, I'm free. One starts to experience an eternal self, a limitless eternal self, which can never ever die.
I was thinking actually, because I was listening quite a bit to Mooji recently.
Yes.
And then he often, when he guides people to point to them to experience their true self or whatever,
Yes.
and then he says, suddenly you feel like they are onto something. And then he says, what is it? They kind of are in touch with their true selves. And then he says, can this die? And I say, no. And I think, how did I know that? Because even sometimes, of course, there is something in me. When he talks like he talks, of course, there's something in me that is observing everything. I said, can that die? Well, I don't know. It might. I mean, even though it's something that is not the body, that is just observing everything, that doesn't mean it cannot die. I have been wondering every time that they say, no, it cannot die. How can they say it cannot die? How do you know? I mean, you can feel like it's something that is not the body, it's just consciousness. But who says, because I remember when I was 5 years old, I still remember actually, I hadn't even started school, and I remember suddenly I got this fear of death. So suddenly I realized, it's only me who is me. I could get myself in there, I was really focusing on this, what am I? And it's only, suddenly it made me feel like horrible, like completely terror actually, because suddenly I had to focus to get to that point. I don't know what made me do it, but suddenly I realized it's just me that is me, and when this I is gone, it will be nothing. And then I felt this, it was like complete horror, complete anxiety, and and I had to think about something else. And I remember I had a friend, I tried to explain to her, you have to think like this to understand this. And then I thought that is a little bit it, but this and that state, when you get so identified with, I kind of tried to understand what I was.
Yeah.
Even when I hadn't even, I must have been 5 or 6 years old. I tried to understand what am I, and then I kind of felt this I that I now experience, this I, because I had got this notion of death, so that this I that I now take for granted, at some point that will be gone. And that for now, in my current experience, this is so natural to me, so I cannot even imagine that it wouldn't be there. But it seems to me that at some point this will not be there. So, and then I try to kind of go in, I try to understand that at some point this will be gone.
But you can never understand it.
No, but I mean that when he kind of guides people to see their true selves, it seems like they say, oh no, this can never go. How do you know?
The Course in Miracles talk about that energy, it doesn't.
You don't know if it can.
But the body does. We know for a fact.
The body, but how can they say that? No, this can never go. It's here now, but it can go. Why? How can you say it can? I would love to be able to say this. That would solve everything. If I could say this can never go, everything would be solved for me.
Look, it's experience. Experience is more powerful than intellectual.
Yeah, but it's just in that moment, and because it's here now, doesn't say it cannot go.
What are you now?
No, I'm here now, but that doesn't mean it cannot go.
What are you now? Are you this thinking that's talking about things?
No, I'm just, I'm thinking also, but I'm just experiencing this you, and I'm hearing, and I'm seeing, and it's just experiencing in this moment. That is true.
Okay,
now.
So there's experiencing in this moment.
Yes.
So what's observing the experiencing?
I don't know, it's something,
Okay, so what is the I that is talking now? Are you these thoughts that are talking right now? Is that what you are?
There is, I don't know what I am, but there is experience.
If you don't even know what you are,
I see a picture, I hear your voice, I can feel my body.
So are you saying that what is seen is what you are? So you see me. Am I you?
I see, I see you're part of my experience. I see you. I see this building. I can feel feel things in my body.
So if you say part.
I can notice my thoughts. I can notice my emotions.
So is the noticer of thoughts? What is the noticer of thoughts?
I don't know.
Is the noticer of thoughts? Can that go there? What notices thoughts?
I don't know, but I cannot say that notice of thoughts cannot disappear. How can I know? It's here now, but that doesn't mean it will be here forever.
Are you in the position of the noticer of thoughts? Or are you just talking?
Something is opposite.
So something is noticing thoughts. Something is noticing.
Something is seeing. Something is hearing. Something is feeling.
but there's something prior to the senses, which is observing the senses. Here now.
But all I know is the senses, really. What do I know apart from the senses?
Look, I know the mug is there, but it's very clear that I'm not the mug.
Yeah, but maybe that is the thing for me, because I'm always in my senses, because you say you're not the mug, but you're still you're hearing, you're seeing. What are you apart from the senses?
The images come and pictures come and go. I know I'm not that. I've experienced it. There's clear witnessing that even if an image passes past me, it's not me. Even if a sound comes, that is not what I am.
But you see, who are you?
This is what I'm
outside of experiencing. You're always experiencing something. Is there something that is outside of experience?
Hey, you're asking intellectual questions where you need to discover now.
Yeah, because now I can only experience.
So something. You see, experiences are contrasting. They're coming, they're changing, they're moving, they're differentiating.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So if something is moving, there has to be something prior to that which moves, which is prior to that of all movement.
But it's still related to the experience, because how can that be there without the experience?
Well, go to that and see if that which is prior to experience is experience.
But all I can, in this very moment, I can see, I can hear, I can feel my physical, the body.
What is the I that is talking about all of this stuff? You see, so you're saying there's like a little person that is
not
seeing.
Not a person, it's more like a space where this is occurring.
So this is better. There is a space.
There's a space where everything is
That's
occurring,
right.
Yeah.
So if you experience this space, so this space is not attached to the senses.
But I don't know, without any content,
well, you've just,
what would it be?
So is this space then, you're not experiencing the space, so you're believing you're the senses?
No, I believe that, I don't know what...
You see, I believe...
I cannot see how... I only know what is here now, but how can people say that this will be forever? Because what does that even mean, forever? You don't even know what that means, because you only have now. There is no forever. There is only now, always. What is forever doesn't mean
So can
anything.
now die?
I don't know. It might be a point where there would be... That's the thing. That's the question, actually. What is nothingness? Could there be nothing? Could there be nothing?
Well, more important is the essence of what you are now in experience a thing? And this is the whole point. Is that, if you say, look, a thought went past, this is what I am. Or
no.
feeling,
Not a thought went past, this is what I am. But I can more feel like I am a space where things are occurring.
Good.
Yeah, that I can feel. I'm a space where things are occurring. There are noises or like this ever go away. That is not even.
Well,
you talk about Course in Miracles. That is not even.
Well, now
you cannot even say it like that, because there is no ever. What is that? You only have this moment.
Now you're talking.
Now you're talking.
Can I die? If you let go of time, then death
there
is impossible.
There is only this. You don't even know what is later, what is that.
Well,
you only have this. That's all you know. You don't know anything else, do you ever?
Well, if there's no person worrying about death, Yeah, and there's no.
There's only this always in a way.
So-
it's just a mind that is kind of creating
Exactly.
some future,
Exactly.
some past,
Exactly.
and all this stuff.
Well, exactly. So that's where they talked from. This is all.
It's
all
only
the,
this.
this is
it's
all.
only this is all we have.
The mind is but an illusion. Time does not exist.
Of course, that
the
is
body-
it. That is it. Oh, yeah, that is it.
So when in
Yeah.
this experiencing, this cannot die. There is no
No,
future.
not in the moment, because you only have the moment. And when you don't talk about future, of
Well,
course,
if you're not talking about the future, then
there is no death, because
the-
there's only now, and now is now, and it is alive.
exactly.
So now is alive, and if there's no future, there's only life now.
That's right, and that is the truth. There is only life now. If you have
It's only the mind that's creating it.
the mind creates a-
future
the-
stuff that is
that-
not even real.
exactly. Now you're talking-
This I haven't thought about. That's a
the
new
mind
one.
creates death.
Yeah, it
The
creates
mind
future.
the
It
mind
creates time.
future. It creates time. It
Time,
creates
yeah.
death.
And
When you're-
without time and without future, there is no death,
Yes,
basically.
there
Because there's only now, and now is life.
That's right.
Yeah.
Actually, the truth is there is only life.
Because
No-
it's only now.
There's only
and
now.
future is an illusion.
Is an-
That is a new twist.
So,
yeah.
death does not exist.
No, because it's only now, and now it's alive.
And now
so there's no death.
that is the truth. That is the Course of Miracles. The life is eternal.
because
this
life is now, and now is
Yes, yes.
everything.
Yes, and the truth of the universe is not that there is death and that's the it, but that life is eternal life.
What is it about the mind? What is this about time then? A future.
No, because you track time, like thoughts. Thoughts are passing, but if there's no identification with thoughts,
If
then
there's only now, there's no death, of course.
no, there's
In
no
now,
doubt.
there can be no death.
Absolutely. In fact, there is only the eternal now. Death is an impossibility. Once you can experience that, death is an impossibility.
Of course, in the now, there's no death. Can
That's
never
right.
be death in the now.
Yes, that's right. This is a truth, an experience. It's not an illusion.
This is actually interesting because I've been thinking in many different ways, but this is a new twist to it actually. Because it's always about creating time in your mind.
Yes.
So you create future and what will happen in the future, but in the now, of course, there can never be death.
No. And there is only the now. Now is the truth.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
The now
it's
is
only now.
the now is the truth, and the now is eternal.
And then you create past. That's in the past, there was something, I was born in
Yes.
the past, and before blah blah blah, and then in the future I will die, and all of this stuff.
This is all illusion. It's all illusion, a figment of the ego's perception.
But why is that?
If you
Well,
are,
that's a
you
stupid
can,
question,
it's a
maybe,
stupid
but why?
question.
But why? I mean, there must
No,
be.
as soon as
why
you-
is it even created?
As soon as you touch thought, as soon as you touch why, as soon as you touch separation and time and an individual,
So there's only now.
that's it. It's very, very simple.
What a relief.
You stay in the truth of now, and then the universe. Then you're in the truth, in synchronicity with the universe. In fact, there is no separation. There is no illusion. There is no time. There is no future. There is no separation. There is no no suffering can exist. And as soon as anything, time, thought, body,
Time is a big problem, isn't it?
time. Well, if there was no thinking, there'd be no time. No identification with thought.
It's like a future.
It's a
The
construct.
only thing that creates worrying and fear is the future, isn't it, most of the time? Of course, you can. The other thing is the pain, physical pain in the now. What is physical pain in the now then? Because that's also. I think for me, it's like. For me, the two biggest things are fear about the future and physical pain in the now, or emotional pain, but mostly also physical pain.
We've covered the future. Future does not exist. Only with
What about physical pain?
Physical pain does not exist without identification. So all the things within this realm, like I've said, with the sound, I've often shared here many times. You've heard me here.
Yeah.
Like sound is a physical phenomena
Yeah.
that is going on. But, there can be like 5 people in the room, and there can be like lots of noise, traffic going. For one person who's very identified with noise, their ego is identified with noise, it's very noisy, it's unbearable. For another person who is in the eternal now, who is in the limitless state, who has zero identification with noise, in that room there is silence.
But even you, when you had your operation and you had this pain, you still felt a lot of physical pain, but then you figured out a way how to be with it or deal with it. But it was still a very strong physical experience for you.
This is the level of identification, because I still had heavy identification with the body. When there is, like I've said, like cramps, I was getting cramps. If you don't resist, you only experiencing in this realm only happens due to resistance.
But what about, like, I was thinking now, because my partner, or my boyfriend, whatever you could call him, he had it now, and I also had like dental problems. He had to have a root canal today, and I had like pain, like you can have like toothache or something. Then, if this is true, you shouldn't even have to go to the dentist, because you should be able to almost make it inexistent. What about if you have a severe toothache and the dentist would say, oh, you have to have a root canal here? That is an illusion also. How could you, if this is true, you shouldn't even have to do that?
Yes, in the high states, you don't have to do that, because like I was just about to share, I've practiced this. When you don't identify, there is no experiencing. So, for example, when I was having the cramps, the thing, of course, is to not resist when these emotions. If you're at the level of an enlightened teacher and able not to resist as the phenomena occur, then there would be no experiencing of it.
But even if there were, from a physical perspective, a dentist would say, oh, you have this thing here, I can see you have an infection. Could you even make that go away without even doing anything?
Yeah, well, at the level, so the high, from Dr. Hawkins' consciousness research and from ancient Indian literature, we have the siddhis. The siddhis are those at very, very high levels of consciousness in which the miraculous continuously happens, where like a phenomenon of the siddhis would be like, for example, like with Mother Teresa. People would just be in her presence with cancer and it would disappear.
It did?
Yes. So, and this happens with many of the Indian gurus. Things just vanish within a split second. They just disappear.
That's a proof to me too that this is true. I mean,
and it's been documented for thousands and thousands of years in Indian literature. Like people can be in two locations at the same time. All the seemingly identified physical laws of the universe do not exist.
No, it's just like a manifestation of some.
It's part
energy
of the shared.
It's all isn't it? It's all like an energy.
It's all energy. Actually, the illusion and separation doesn't exist. It's not real. The truth is eternal, everlasting.
That's why I feel almost like every time I buy into this thing, I have this thing, I have to go there. I haven't even been to the doctor since I came to London 2 years ago, so it's not that. But especially with my teeth, where I have had lots of problems with my teeth, and now it costs lots of money, and I thought, I shouldn't even have to. I should be able to just make. I shouldn't even buy into this thing, and it feels like almost like a failure that I should buy into some kind of toothache or something. It's like, if this is true, this is not even real.
It's not real. Identification creates separation. Any identification with body, sensations in the body, identification with thoughts, identification with anything within the collective illusion, creates, to the extent that there is identification, to that extent things seem to be more real in a dualistic suffering sense.
What is the best way then, when you're not already super enlightened? Is it this cancelling of beliefs, or what is the best way to deal with it when you feel like you're caught up in it?
Well, here's a very important thing to realize with all suffering, is that resistance creates suffering. Now, a lot of people have habitual resistance to pains, to physical symptoms. To resistance is like not allowing things to be without any identification. So it's like I'll share it so you get the idea. It's like if a cramp was to come up, like I'd wake up in the mornings, and the cramp, and I could feel the cramp. Now, the natural human, or the natural ego thing, is not to want it to be there, to want to push it away, or to say I don't like this, or to have
There's something wrong with me, I need to
something-
fix it, I need to go to the doctor.
exactly. Or to try and push it mentally away. I don't want this. This is all resistance creates dualistic experience.
And fear also. It brings up a lot of fear. For me at least, like fear, something wrong with me, I have to protect my body, I have to protect my life, my survival.
So all of this is resistance.
Yeah.
So when you just let everything be, with that, if you were enlightened, you could let everything be in a split second with zero resistance, just allowing, and in that there would actually be zero experience of it. And this actually happened. On the days that I woke up and I initially started to resist it, I don't want it, then I'd get a full cramp and I'd be limping around the day. And then some days it would be like, okay, it would be like a spontaneous, immediate acceptance and like welcoming of it, like 100%, with zero resistance, like 100% yes, non-verbally, within a split second. And it would be like flip and it's gone. I didn't feel anything at all.
What was it then that made you be able to some days welcome it in that way and other days not?
Because you know, like I said, Dr David R Hawkins, one of my spiritual teachers, shared his experience, and he shared this. You know, whatever you resist, whatever is in resistance is experienced. That which is not resisted is not experienced. And he shared his thing. He had been applying this phenomenon of non-resistance, and he had an allergy to anesthetic. And one day he was with his electric saw in the woods, and he cut his thumb off, and so he non-resisted, you know, the thing. And he said it should have been squirting out with blood, but it healed very, very quickly. But he was taken to the hospital, and he had to tell the doctors he had an allergy to anesthetic, and they were going to cut off his thing. So the only tool he had available to experience them, like, you know, sawing off his thumb, the rest of his thumb off, was to use non-resistance. And you know, to use non-resistance in that type of scenario. And he stated, and I know he was telling the truth, because I just have that experience that he is, that he went into a sublime state of heavenly peace just by being on that edge. It takes a lot of practice, or an advanced spiritual awareness, but you practice every day to non-resist life, you know, to experience 100% without resistance as one is sawing through.
But does that mean then that you should never go to a doctor or to a dentist, or you shouldn't even have to do that?
I mean, these become one is unfolded by the grace of the universe. It doesn't matter to go to the doctor. One can go to the doctor and still use non-resistance.
But I mean, you shouldn't even have to do that if it's true. I mean, you shouldn't go to a doctor or dentist.
It becomes at the highest states of non-resistance. There is no you deciding anything. It might be that it just seems to happen that one is in the doctor with non-resistance, or it might seem to happen that one heals automatically, but there is no individual saying that it should not or it should.
That's not an individual making the decision.
That's right. That individual. So it might seem, even though there's no individual there, it might look like there is an individual in the doctor, but actually there'd be nothing experienced. And it might be that the universe would want that to happen, and that's what happens. Or it might be that a miracle happens spontaneously, but there's still not an individual there.
And it doesn't matter.
And it doesn't matter either. And it spontaneously cures whichever way it happens. It happens.
Because you're not trying to protect yourself anymore. You're not trying to
survive.
Because that's what it's about, isn't it? Most of the time, survive.
Yes.
Make this body survive. The body survive.
That's right. So in those higher states, whether a doctor is present or that seems to happen, or whether it spontaneously cures, there's no individual there dictating what happens.
Trying to protect themselves.
Yeah, because that has already gone. So it's just, you could say it's the unfolding of the grace of the universe, and whatever that looks like is whatever that looks like. There's no individual there saying it should have looked different to the way it looked.
It's a mystery, all of this, isn't it? To me, it's like a mystery. Oh my God.
I mean, it's the isness unfolding.
It's this constant, at least inside of me, it's a constant struggle in a way, but something is trying to survive constantly inside of me. And I know that part, it's so clear to me that part that is trying to survive has no chance, that part will never survive because it's impossible to survive in that way. That part that wants to survive, to make this body survive in that way, is doomed. I know.
It's doomed.
Yeah.
So the best thing to do now is to fully recognize what it can never ever be doomed, and then to live in that place, and then eventually recognize that one is eternal life. And that
if you can recognize that, of course, what a relief.
And I haven't recognized it yet. And then one is in the world but not of the world.
Exactly.
One is the eternal, and one is definitely not that which is going.
Because for me, the only hope is that when I hear people talk, and I can feel that they believe what they say, I can feel they are coming from their own truth, and they seem to be absolutely sure that they tell their truth. And then that affects me. So, okay, if they say that, I trust, it seems like they are speaking the truth, and that affects me, then I go, okay. So that's my only hope, because I cannot say for myself that I know for sure. Well, and that's where my big fear comes from, that I still believe in death. I believe in death, and that's my biggest fear, I suppose. I believe in death, and that pain comes from there.
Yeah.
And the physical pain and death and emotional pain, but it all comes from that. And then I see this other thing that I mean, sometimes even in yourself, in everyone, I think you glimpse it sometimes. You feel there is something in you that is different, that is almost bigger than that.
That's
and
right.
you hear other people talking, you feel when I talk, this is something that I trust. They seem to come from truth. I believe it touches me what I say, I trust what I say, but for myself I still am not, I cannot say that I know for sure when, like, for example, when Mooji talks, like I said, when he talks to these people and they say, can this die? No, it cannot die, they say.
Thank you. Before you go, did you have any other questions or anything you wanted to ask?
Well, I mean, this is a very trivial question. Maybe a very trivial question.
Please, before you go, ask the trivial questions.
And because I was trying to square this with A Course in Miracles.
Oh yes, yeah.
And so my the hotel opposite where I live, they've against the law, they've become a nightclub and they make a lot of noise.
Right.
So I could call them. I could call the council. I could shut them down. Because they're actually breaking the law.
Oh, you're the owner of the hotel?
No, I'm not. No, I'm just a neighbor.
Okay.
But there's a hotel which is making a lot of noise. And so I could just, by phoning the council, I could just make it stop and go away. But I'm wondering how this, this would solve my problem, seemingly, because then I'd have peace again. But there's this whole concept, about forgiveness and and non-aggression, and I'm wondering. I mean, before I took this sort of action, actually, this is a question I did want to ask. What would be your take on that, and how would that square in with this sort of practice of forgiveness and so forth? Does that make sense? I mean, I know this is a very sort of
no, it makes sense.
Odd question.
I think it's a great question. I've shared many times in this group, the practicalities of doing the course. I go to various spiritual groups, and in one of I've written a book actually about that. I've written it in the book. This thing of it's called A Course in Miracles, and so I was in one of my groups, and there was a lady in that group that didn't like me using the word God. She got very, and she was quite aggressive towards me. I was quite aggressive towards her because I wanted to continue to speak the way I wanted to speak. So we had this animosity towards each other every time both of us were in the room. And of course, then I knew that I was holding this grievance, this resentment against her. So I applied the course, and I applied something called the 12 steps. And you know, God is a love in which I forgive her. I pray for a miracle to see her differently. Instead of this person, I could see peace. God is a love in which I bless this person. This person is but an illusion in my mind. I was doing all of this continuously, you know, because there was like this anger towards this person, and every time I would see her in the room, there was this anger. So it was a visceral thing. But I wanted to completely let it go, completely forgive her, completely. And this is a true story. And one day, I woke up in the morning and I felt it was gone. There was no more anger. There was nothing there. It was just 100% gone. And that day, this is a true story, I went into that meeting that I go to, where she comes, and she was there, and she came up to me. You know, normally we didn't have to speak directly to each other. She said, "Sabbir, you've taught me a great spiritual lesson. I just want to let you know I'm leaving the country." She said, "This is a true story. I'm not making this up." On the day I felt it cleared, and then she said, "You told me something." And she said, "I'm leaving the country." And it was like when I had forgiven her, it was like the lesson had been learned, and it was like it was no longer necessary for her to be in the same country. It was like the universe just took her out of the country, you know. And that might sound hilariously funny, but I've also experienced it with other people that I've been supporting. You know, they have someone, you know, something happens. Not necessarily they leave the country, but when they get to that peace and forgiveness, 100%, it's like in some way something happens and the situation is resolved. You know, when that energy, that darkness and that identification is 100% released. And I've seen it not just in that's one of the stories from myself, but either, you know, sometimes the relationships mend, sometimes there's a communication, sometimes people just automatically, without even saying something, they change their behavior. The most miraculous things happen, because remember, at the course level, we're all connected. So the miraculous happens once one makes a powerful shift in oneself. There's also an effect on others, even without communication. And at a certain level, even if nothing in the external world changed, even if you stayed in there, once you've gone to complete forgiveness and peace, actually it doesn't matter whether they stay or leave the country. The other thing is, of course, even with noise, you see, you know, like I share with noise, this might, you know, some people might be in extreme situations and may think it's different, but it's not different. It's like when I first went to live in my house, we had the Piccadilly line tube just in my garden going past, and it was like the house would shake, and it would be like there was so much noise, and then after a while I didn't hear the noise at all. You know, I couldn't hear the noise, and I had people come in. So how can you live here? It's like there's a noise, and I go, what? And then I didn't hear any noise the whole day. They had to point it out to me, and I go, oh yeah, I don't really hear that any longer. You see, so so it's like this thing when something is completely forgiven, there's complete peace. It's like when it was new and I didn't want the noise there.
You were
like,
resisting it.
I was like hearing this noise all the time. It was like, oh my God, you know, this is terrible. I'm a victim of this noise. And then after a while, when it was like I lost my interest in the noise, it's like there was no noise. In fact, it was like I didn't hear any noise the whole day. So it's like these kinds of things through forgiveness. Sometimes through forgiveness, it might happen that the Piccadilly line would shut down. I don't know. And sometimes it would be like I wouldn't hear it, like with this individual. But sometimes these most extraordinary miracles happen. You know, like this individual was just taken out of the country. So as you do, what I found is as you make the energetic shift internally, a miracle of some sort. Maybe the person may dramatically change or move, or maybe even I won't experience it, even if it carries on. Something extraordinary happens. So it's very practical.
So what is this, I mean, two follow-up questions.
Yes.
You mentioned this 12-step process
to
forgive?
Yes.
This is in the Course of Miracles? Or
no, this is a separate thing.
Okay.
So I used to be, I'm now 8 years, what we call 8 years abstinent from my addiction. I used to be a food addict.
Okay.
You know, like sugary foods, chocolates, donuts, things like that. So I joined a 12-step fellowship. We have many of them in all over the world. The most famous 12-step fellowship is Alcoholics Anonymous. And that's a 12-step fellowship for people with the addiction to alcohol. Camera. Okay. I joined a food fellowship to deal with 12 steps and letting go of food addiction. And I'd say what's very, very nice about the 12 steps is that, you know, they're all over the place every day whenever you want them. There's like 2 meetings a day in London for those. And they offer a group support. They're less powerful than the Course in Miracles, but you get a mentor called a sponsor, and he takes you through the 12 steps. And in that, you list every resentment, every fear you have, and you share it with your sponsor, and then you pray for all of this stuff to be removed. So it's a very powerful, I'd say, very powerful process. You know, they have fellowships for food addiction, for alcoholism, for drugs, for workaholism, for relationship addiction issues, for workaholism addiction issues. So usually codependency, they have, you know, love addiction issues. So they have different fellowships for all of these ranges of things. So if there's any, you know, I often say, if anyone is experiencing, just to get the benefit of a 12-step fellowship and to go through the 12-step process of releasing layers of the ego with a mentor or a sponsor, I think it's useful to find, they have like a 12-step group for everything you can imagine, from food, drugs, alcohol, work, love addiction, relationships, so gambling, all kinds of issues to do with it. So if you can join one, the 12-step process is the same, but it's just applied to whatever is troubling you. But it's a very deep cleansing, I would say, of what's being identified within the ego. I'd say the Course in Miracles is a higher teaching, because here in the Course in Miracles we're disappearing the actual idea that, like in the 12 steps, it would be like, I pray to God to remove my anger at this person. So it's still not at the level of Course in Miracles. It still believes there's a little I beseeching the big I to remove something so that it can feel more peace. Whereas in the Course in Miracles, the idea of a separate I and a separate body, we're deleting that. But I'd still say the 12 steps is very powerful, because you have that individual mentoring and sponsorship and that witnessing of being able to share, you know, go through your childhood. I was angry at this, I was angry at that, I was fearful this happened, I was fearful for that. And then to go through a special spiritual process called a step 4, to write this down, share it with a sponsor, and then ask God to remove all of this identification. So, and also being able to help others with the problem later on. So that's the 12. What was the other question?
Well, I mean, you know, so an alternative thought which came to mind. So, I mean, well, just the idea of, I mean, and I guess this is where the difficulty comes in, right? Because I guess there's only ever need to forgive if we think that there is a perpetrator.
That's right. Yeah.
And I guess, I mean, you know, in this situation, I do not see how I bring this on to myself, right? Because there's a nightclub which is making noise. I want to enjoy my flat peacefully. You know, why is this happening to me, and why do I have to forgive them? And my alternative thinking in a way is, well, you know, maybe I just have like, you know, kind of self-punishment issues, and actually all I have to do is learn to, you know, like the bully needs to be stood up to. Maybe all I have to do is learn how to stand up to the bully. And, you know, maybe that's what actually needs to change, is actually, you know, do you see...
Yeah, you're wondering why is it happening.
Exactly, I'm wondering, is it because, you know, is there some sort of... Because I can, you know, let's say this example you gave with another person, I mean, that makes sense to me. I find it, and you know, I've noticed myself how if I change my mind about somebody else,
yes,
then actually the trait which annoys me about them just disappears.
That's
I mean,
right.
they didn't even have to leave themselves. Actually, I just have a different experience of
That's
them.
right. Yeah.
But I find it hard to apply that to almost like an institution, like in this case a hotel which has a nightclub in it, and it's a nightclub producing. It's a whole set of people. You know, it's kind of like it's whole machinery which is kind of pitted against me. And so, what does forgiveness actually? So, if we go down the route of forgiveness, what does forgiveness?
Forgiveness means to let go of identification completely from the separate I. To let go of all identification. It's a form of surrender or letting go. It's a symbolic way. Yes, I take what you say. I mean, generally speaking, most people in conceptual language think of forgiveness as a person. Like, I forgive John. But we find it more difficult to say, I forgive the bank, or I forgive politics.
But it's the same thing, isn't it?
But it is the same thing at the end of the day. Like, I forgive this whole nightclub for making so much noise. But anyway, if the word forgive is difficult, it's basically to let go of something which is being held repeatedly within the separate self that keeps coming up again. I don't like this noise. I don't like.
It is resistance, isn't that
yes,
what it
it's
is?
A resistance.
You're resisting it. You're resisting this now, and when you
Yes.
stop, like you said, the same with the pain in the
Yes,
thumb.
yeah.
When you stop resisting it, something will shift.
Something will shift, or it will
Yeah.
disappear. So forgiveness is like, forgiveness is like you're resisting.
Yeah.
So you're not accepting. The opposite of resistance or unforgiveness or non-acceptance or any of those type of emotions or thoughts or angers is the complete opposite. So it will be either forgiveness, or it will be complete acceptance, or complete non-resistance, or complete acceptance, or complete allowing of what is without zero resistance. And then if that could be done without it being a process, then there would be no more experience of that. And if you could have non-resistance to all aspects of the idea of a separate self, then even the separate self would disappear as an entity in relationship to otherness. So what was the question again?
No, I think you've answered it. I mean, I was just,
Yes.
I guess I was asking you to elaborate on what you mean with forgiveness in the sense which you've pretty much explained.
Oh yes, there was something else you shared. I mean, one can. There's no right or wrong. I'm not saying anything is right or wrong. Everyone is at a different level of consciousness and perceives the world differently depending on how much identification they have and how much spiritual work they've done. So they see a totally different world. So, like at a certain level of consciousness, this person is bad because or this institution is bad because it's making too much noise. And therefore the right thing to do is for me to knock on the door and tell them that they're very bad people and that I'm going to get my solicitor involved and I'm going to sue them unless they stop immediately. So that's, at a certain level of consciousness, that's how you see the world, and that's what's seen as the right thing to do. I'm not saying that's...
Or maybe that you need to move. It's also another way of I need to move.
I need to move. And I'm not saying that's right or wrong. It's just like what is perceived, and that's just what happens depending on how one sees the situation. So I'm not negating anyone does whatever they think is practical solution. I would say what I was sharing is a mystical way of dealing with it, but I'm not saying any other way is wrong. I'm not saying moving or telling them to do it. What I would say on a certain level is that energetically, if I it's better for me in my view on a practical level, it's better to try and communicate with individuals if possible, with doing as much forgiveness work before you communicate with them as possible. Like if someone says something to me and I feel really, really angry, and I try and talk to them immediately from that unprocessed anger, in my experience or my belief is that it tends to not go so well for myself and the other person. So it's often better, if you want to make practical communication with an individual, to try and get as much forgiveness and peace done beforehand, before communication, because that energy of peace or forgiveness when communicated with, tends to have a better likelihood of a better outcome happening if one wants to communicate. That's the only thing I would say with the communication. If, you know, I'm going with it like a crowbar, knocking on the door saying, you know, I'm going to sue you guys and you guys go to hell, kind of thing. It's like that energetic vibration tends to create a certain energy or a stuckness, which tends to not lead to the. So even if one feels drawn to communicate, my own thing is, and it seems like, you know, I'm going to tell them they're wrong, they're definitely the bad people, is to try and do as much forgiveness work and peace, and then communicate. But often, like with this lady, you know, like for myself, I prefer the mystical means. I'm not saying that's right for everyone else. So I prefer just to like 100% resolve it in myself.
Well, for me, it is a recurrent pattern to have noisy neighbours. So
isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
I used to have that pattern myself for a long time, and then it just disappeared.
Yes.
I had it for years. Everywhere I moved, there would be a noisy neighbour, and then there was a construction work outside, and then now it's not. Isn't that interesting?
No, I don't. I think that's. I think once you've forgiven the thing completely, it doesn't happen any longer. It's like it happens again and again.
Yeah,
and again.
I get it. That's where we go. Something will come, you know.
Until it's completely forgiven and completely one has non-resisted in peace. It's like a recurring. It's like the patterning in oneself, the unforgiveness in oneself is bringing it again and again and again.
You know, so I mean, this is in a way why I asked the question is,
Yes.
And it's, let's say. I mean, I just find the concept, conceptually, how to forgive this, I actually find it quite difficult because, let's say, I mean, let me give you an example, right, where I find it easy. Like, so a friend of mine and I were walking down the street, and there was a man on the phone, and he was shouting in the phone, and you know, shouting all sorts of obscenities in the middle of the street, and very angry person. As we passed, my friend, once we passed, my friend said, you know, I just feel like punching this guy. And so then I was thinking, well, you know, so this guy here, you know, he feels justified in his anger because he gets random people punching him in the face for reasons he doesn't understand. Because he's angry, right? So he doesn't, so in a way I can see, let's say well, maybe I am an angry person, right? But in a way this is what I'm asking for help, right? Is if people aggress me, I guess maybe I have some anger in me, and so I should forgive them because it is my anger that is attracting their aggression.
Yes.
How, you know, so I understand this way of thinking.
Yes.
But I don't understand how one can apply it to noisy neighbors. I mean,
I would use different lessons. You see, like instead of saying I forgive these people, if that's difficult, you could use some of the other Course in Miracle lessons. Like instead of these noisy neighbours, I could see peace. Yeah. You know, you know, or noisy neighbours is but an illusion in my mind. Yeah. You see, or let me practice non-resistance of the noise. You know, let me practice acceptance of the noise.
And the idea being always that on some level I've created this. I mean, not just on some level, I guess, but you know,
Yes. That doesn't matter so much.
Well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, don't focus on that. You would just create more problems. I think it's better if you just
see, the simple way to see it is resistance creates experience. Resistance creates experience. Non-acceptance creates experience. So,
isn't that in a way also the mind who wants to perpetuate it by saying, why did I create this, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah, it's not useful to go into dialogue. It's not useful to dialogue it. It's more useful just to practically work on it. Because, you know, like I said, everything is like the metaphor for the car noise or the train noise. You know, all experiencing, you see, even that which seems to be a real phenomenon, like real noise, actually, if there's no resistance or
everything is energy vibrations. That's the thing. If you come back, I think I've thought of that recently also.
Yes.
Everything you feel like so real. If you really think, It's just energy. It's not solid like you think it is. It's like solid. I have this thing. If you go into the normal stuff, you have this problem, this physical thing. You have this thing in your body. It's not the thing in my body. This is all energy.
It's all energy
all the time. It's just can be changed in a second.
There is this only energy. I mean, there is no separate self. There is no individuality. There is no individual me experiencing an otherness as such. So
that's why miracles can happen. That's why someone who has a cancer can be well next day.
That's right. It's just held through the identification of the individual. So where are we with you? Are you sort of? What was the question?
No, I mean I've asked the same question several times, and you've answered. I mean, you know, how does one apply forgiveness to this?
Okay.
You've answered. I mean, you're saying non-resistance and.
Okay. There's another way with non-resistance. You see, even like making a story about what's going on is resistance. You see, as soon as one picks up the thought, I don't like this. That is a form of resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the pure forms of non-resistance is what I call practicing, allowing the experiencing of isness, of what is happening now, without without allowing any identification with thought. You see?
Mm-hmm.
So it's like,
I see.
So it's like, okay, there is noise, but if you don't pick up any thought, there's not an I experiencing noise. It's just the experiencing of noise.
Yeah.
And then, okay, but then if something is identifying with the noise, so then you go, okay, but what is it that is observing the identification with the noise, which is not identified with the noise? And then you just allow, and then these things will start to disappear, you see. So it's just allowing things. And one of the things is what I coin it the spiritual warrior attitude, is just not to resist life as it occurs. You see, to always allow, it's almost like to allow everything to be what it is without any resistance in every moment, all the time. So it's like nothing that happens shouldn't happen. Nothing that happens you want to make a commentary on. It's just allowing the experiencing of everything in every moment. Then these things start to become more automatic. And as these things become automatic, then actually a lot of this stuff will start to disappear from experiencing. Because there's not an individual who's like saying, this is right, this is wrong, I like this, I don't like this. And these things start to disappear, and all kinds of synchronicities and miracles will start to happen.
Got it, yeah. Because creating the story strengthens the ego, right?
That's right, yeah.
Okay.
And actually, if there was no ego there, then actually a lot of identification would be released. Because half of it is just the ego identification, creating resistance.
Yeah.
And then the more resistance there is, the more it's experienced as being loud and not what and wishing it wasn't there the way it is. And then as it's fully accepted, then it's actually not experienced. And then actually, for myself, one of two things happens. Either it suddenly stops for some bizarre reason, or it doesn't bother you any longer. So either way,
you're okay.
It's okay. But I've also experienced like the most bizarre things, like people leaving countries and all kinds of things in that process.
Yeah. Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you for your. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Well, thank you.